Today on Women in Post, we have Eliana Zebro with us. Eliana is an audio engineer and composer. She does production sound and audio post-perfection. Post-perfection.
Well, I do post-perfection.
Yes.
You got that right.
Awesome. Post-production. Eliana, thank you for coming on this show. How are you doing today?
Good. And no, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Good. So can you tell us how you got interested in doing audio for post-production? When did that start?
So that started way back before I even entered the film world, when I was first going into college, because I decided when I was going to enter college that I wanted to do a self-design major in music composition and music technology, because in order to be a composer in this day and age, you also need to be a music technology expert. And that path got me down learning basic pieces of music technology that I started using, like Pro Tools, audio interfaces, microphones. And from there, I branched out from music technology to audio technology, and then started doing more audio post-production things. And here I am.
Wow. Okay. So you do Pro Tools.
Pro Tools, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
I'm a Pro Tools girl through and through.
Have you been able to compare Pro Tools to what maybe some people who aren't specifically in sound engineering would do, like what is it, Audacity or Audition? Like, is it comparable or is it just a whole different thing?
I'd say it's a whole different thing, because Pro Tools is classified as a digital audio workstation, but it's a different digital audio workstation than, say, FL Studio, which is a digital audio workstation that's focused on music production. Like, if you work in FL Studio, you're gonna have a very different workflow than if you're gonna work in Pro Tools. Same with other digital audio workstations like Cubase. The workflow for each of them is unique to what they're used for. For example, there's one called Ableton that a lot of people like, but I've never learned how to use it, and it would be difficult to learn how to use it because it has very specific things that are specific to the program. It looks very pretty, but it's difficult to learn, kind of like Pro Tools, actually. So every digital audio workstation has its own unique quirks that makes them different. As for specifically Audacity on Audition, I say Audacity is kind of a digital audio workstation light. Like, it has all those features that you would need, but they're kind of hard to find at points, and they're kind of hidden behind little buttons that you're like, what does this do? I'm not sure how to do that. So it can be a little confusing, especially to people who don't have audio experience before using Audacity. And Audition, I've used Audition a little bit. Personally, I didn't like it very much from what I use. I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I could be completely wrong. I might just need to learn it a little more, just putting that out there. But from what I saw of it, I just didn't see the way to use a multi-track editing as efficiently as I could with Pro Tools. But that's just in my experience.
So curious, when you're composing then, as a music person, do you play on a keyboard? Does it notate it for you, like in a staff?
Yeah. So I use a separate program called Sibelius for that. So in there's two phases to every composing job, and there's the composing phase, and then there's the mixing phase. So the composing phase is obviously writing all the music. And what I'll do in that stage is I'll go through the film. I'll have the film open in Sibelius. There's a separate program for video within Sibelius, so I can easily score the film and put the music in time with the film, and then write my music. At this point, I'm not getting feedback yet from the people yet. I'm just writing what I want to write based on the conversation I've had with the film's production staff about the film. So I write the music, and then we go on to the mixing phase, which is I take all the MIDI files from Sibelius and I export them from Sibelius, and then I import the MIDI into Pro Tools, and from there I'm editing. From there, I put everything into an orchestral library. But the problem is, default MIDI files, they still sound like a computer. You listen to them, you're going to hear a computer playing a computer's music. It doesn't sound real. So at that point, I need to go through the entire score and edit all the notes so that they sound like they're really being played by a human. And the way I go about that is I adjust the different levels that are related to each specific note in the score. And that takes a pretty long time, as you would imagine. Another way to do this would be to play through the entire score on piano, because then I could get a human touch by playing it myself. But usually I don't do that just because I have a lot of music to manage, and I prefer to just manage it myself by hand. Of course, it all depends on the project. I might change my preferences someday. Who knows? But for right now, the mixing phase is going through, making everything sound human, and then of course mixing the music so that everything is how it should be within the mix of the score.
So theoretically, could somebody be a music composer who really knows like a ton of music theory but has no idea how to actually play an instrument?
That's a great question. And I would say that the answer is yes and no, because yes, if you know music theory and you know music and you know the things that you need to know, you're going to get a bit far, but eventually you're probably going to hit a wall, because the thing about playing instruments is that it helps teach you the limitations and strengths of each instrument. So if you learn how to play piano, you're going to learn and be able to perform and be able to compose music a lot better for piano than a non-pianist. I have this in my experience. I'm a pianist, and I know several other pianists who write great piano music, and I've known people who aren't pianists who write kind of crappy piano music because they don't know how to write piano music. And this was just talking about my school experience, by the way, not anyone I know professionally. These are schoolmates from way back when. But if you learn how to play an instrument, you learn the limitations of that instrument, and that's going to help you a whole lot. For example, the flute. The flute has a lower, when you play a lower tone on the flute, it gets very soft because it's in its lowest register and it gets very soft. If you don't know this and you write for the flute to play forte as loud as possible at the lowest volume, it's not going to happen. You're going to go to record the flute and record your score, and your flutist is not going to be able to do that. It's just not possible.
And are you talking about like when you actually have a symphony performing the song that you wrote, or?
Oh yeah, I'm talking about that sort of experience.
Yeah.
But you just got to know the limitations of your instruments in order to play them well, and not just play them well, but write for them well.
How many instruments do you personally play?
So I play 3 different instruments. I play the piano, I play the violin, and then I also do classical voice. I started playing piano when I was 5-6 years old, so I've been playing piano for a very long time. Violin, I played for 5 years, and I took a 5-year break, and I just got back to it about 2-3 years ago. Classical voice, I've been studying for about 4 years. And for the other instruments, the many other instruments I need for my work, I also studied orchestration in school as part of my degree. I studied those instruments extensively. So like I said, learning the limitations and strengths of these instruments so I could really write them as well as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That sounds like a huge, like there's just so much to know. That's really a 4-year, at least 4 years. I mean, how long does it take to get through the program?
So I got a 4-year bachelor's degree, but I do know people who've gotten their master's in music composition. I actually have a friend, Clarissa. We just met for coffee way back. We met at a filmmaking event, actually, and she wanted to hear more about breaking into the film space, so we had a little chat over coffee. Lovely lady. But yes, it can be a 4-year degree. It can be a 6-year degree. It depends on the person, depends on the school. I would say that it's something that could warrant more study if you are interested in doing more study. It all depends on your professional goals, your personal goals, all those things.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of your professional, well, I think that's jumping ahead a little bit because we've got your website, I've got your website here, and you just have like a ton of things that you've done, even recently, like.
I just updated it recently too, my list of projects.
Yeah.
I updated that recently.
So what is your most recent project that you're working on? And can you take us through your routine of when you get a new project, where you start?
Sure. So my most recent project is actually a Viacom project that I can't talk about because confidentiality agreements, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's been a great project for me. And my most recent project before that was a short film called Addie and Addie. And that's Addei and Addy. So the girls, both of their names are Addie, and they get mixed up for the same person on the same lease. So then they have to live together. It's a great, funny comedy of a film. And I got to work on that because the lead actress for that was in another film that I worked on back in November. And she said, hey, I really like to work on that film. Can we work together on my film? So that's how I got working on that. But my process with new clients is first we figure out what the time frame is. A lot of the times in the indie film world, we're going to go for a one and done type approach, which means that we do one pass of audio and that's it. Because that's most efficient for them. That's most efficient for their budget, honestly. So that's what's going to work for them in those scenarios, is that they give me the audio, I edit and mix the audio, and then I give it back to them, and that's the only contact we have. But other projects can be a longer time frame. For example, I recently worked on a horror film called What's in the Woods, and that was all sound mixing, but that involved initially 3 passes of audio. So for each pass is me doing the audio, I give the audio to the client, they give me notes, I do a second pass, same thing, they give me notes, I do a third pass, notes, et cetera, et cetera. And that eventually evolved into even more passes of audio that we did in January of this year. So it really depends on the project, depends on the client, but the first thing is to set the time frame. And before you set the time frame, you also need to figure out what your time frame is going to be, of how long it's going to take you to work. Now, I've gotten very good at my job of knowing how long a film is going to take me just by watching it at this point. So my clients send me a link to the film, I watch it, I say, okay, this is going to take me how many days to do first pass or one and done pass, depending on the job. And then we set the time frame from there. So usually a film, indie film, if there's a one and done time frame, it's going to be 1-2 days of work. It really depends on the film, depends on the length of the film, depends on what type of film, if it's a lot of sound effects, if there's a lot of music, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that kind of varies the time frame a bit.
And when you say they send you the film, you mean the script and the treatment, right? Not actually like the image locked.
Oh no, I mean the image locked film. Yes. So because I can only work on audio post-production when the film is locked. I can't work on audio post when the film is not locked yet. It's a bit like color grading that way. So I can't do anything until the film is locked, because if I work on the film before it's locked and then they change things, I'm going to have to redo the audio all over again and all the audio. So we can't do anything audio-wise till the film is locked.
So they have to have all of their narrative already recorded. Mm-hmm. And then they give those files to you.
That's right.
So when you're saying passing, like you go over and do another pass, it's like you're editing of the recorded product. You're not actually like going in and making new recordings in the woods, right?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not doing that. What happens is that, and this is the second step, is after we set the time frame, they send me the files. They usually do this through WeTransfer, and they send me what's called an OMF or an AAF, and this is a type of project data file. And what this does is this gives me every single audio file in the project, exactly how it is in the locked film, so I can go in and edit the files. And then, of course, the next step after importing all these files is to get to work. So a lot of the time, the first step of my work is to sort the files, because a lot of the times, especially in the independent film world, the files are just named audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, audio 4, whatever. So I need to go through and each track and see, okay, this track has dialogue, this track has music, this track has sound effects. And sometimes if there's multiple things on one track, like if one track has music and sound effects, I'll sort it so that we can have sound effects on one track and music on another track, just so things are really organized. And then, of course, audio editing and mixing comes next. And I use Isotope RX for audio editing. If you don't know what that is, that's a program that lets you go in and make a lot of changes to your audio. So if there's clicks in your audio, it can fix the clicks. If there's pops in your audio, it can fix the pops. If there's rustling going on in the background, it can eliminate the rustling. Very powerful stuff. Very good stuff.
Is this one of those like the niche audio editing softwares that cost like thousands of dollars?
Yes, okay. It is. But advanced version,
right? If you're doing it all the time,
yes, it's absolutely worth it. But yes, the advanced version that I own, I think they just upgraded to version 7. I'm still on version 6. I might upgrade soon, actually. We'll see. But I think the advanced Isotope RX Advanced, which I use, costs about over $1,000, something like that. There's also the basic version and called Elements, and then there's a standard version. So if you want to start audio editing, everyone, start with Isotope RX Elements, because that's fairly cost efficient. And then once you feel like, okay, that's not enough, I need to expand my toolbox, then you can move on to maybe standard and advanced. As for me, I started with advanced right away because I knew, okay, I need the best tools possible so I can do the best job for my clients possible. So I bought RX right off the bat because I already knew how to use it, because I downloaded the demo and I figured out everything I need to figure out from that.
Okay. All right, let's back up a little bit, because there's one question. It might be a silly question, but I do a lot of indie type things too, and sometimes like as the one who's not doing the sound, I would like to change the naming structure of the camera files. Does it influence your work at all if the editor changes file names?
No.
Okay.
Normally I don't look at file names, I just look at track names. So as long as the track names, I can figure out what's on each track, if it's dialogue, if it's music, if it's sound effects, whatever, then I'm fine. So if you want to change the file names, that's fine. If you want to give me a heads up of that, hey, I changed the file names from X to Y to Z, Y, whatever, you can let me know. But usually it's not going to affect my work too much.
So how does the syncing process work? Does the computer do it for you, or do you have to listen to everything and watch everything and try to do it manually?
Oh no, the computer does it for me. If I had to do it myself, it'd be a nightmare. No, all the files are already synced within the OMF and the AAF file. So I'm good there. I just need the AAF or OMF and then the picture locked film, preferably as a low res MP4 because that plays the fastest in Pro Tools. And then I'm good to go. All the files are already synced and I can just start sorting my tracks, doing my editing, doing my mixing from there.
Okay, one other question. If the people recording and producing, the people involved in the production of the short film, had an audio engineer record audio separate from the camera tracks, how does that audio get connected to the camera audio for your workflow?
So I'm pretty sure that the editor does that part. What happens usually is that I've done production sound as well. So I know that when I'm doing production sound, the first thing that they say is sound, and then I roll sound, and I say sound speeds. So the first thing that rolls is sound. And then when the editor goes, and I'm pretty sure that the editor is going to listen to my audio files, because I give my audio files to the team after we're done shooting, and sync every audio to video from there. So I don't do any of that in the post-production process. The editor does all that for me.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're kind of talking about where you get started when they send you the project, right? I mean, so like, what are some of the things after you have all of your stuff that you do with every project?
So what I do with every project is that I'm making presets in Isotope RX, because once I edit out audio and I edit out, let's say there's a wind noise that I edit out, I'm pretty sure that that wind noise is going to come back within the project. So I'm always making new presets for each project to say, okay, I'm going to refer back to this preset. This is my getting the wind out of the background preset that I can use as a base for all the rest of the wind within this project. And that saves me a lot of time, because it means that instead of being forced to go to everything from scratch for every single audio file, I can have a base to work on that says, okay, this is what's happening. This is where my audio is. This is how I can erase this audio. So that makes things a lot more handy.
Yeah, of course, that's such a good idea. I can't believe I never thought of that.
It's not a magic catch-all, obviously, but it means that if I hear wind in the background, I say, okay, let's go my wind preset, and I load it in, and maybe we've eliminated 98% of the wind. I just need to do a little tweaking of the last 2% out. You do know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. It just depends on the project, of course. And I usually need the presets after the project. So I was talking about Addy and Addy earlier. So all my presets for that project, I call them A&A whatever. So A&A room tone, A&A clicks, A&A wind, whatever. And then just made new presets for whatever I needed. And things were pretty handy from there, because once you have a base to work off of, it makes your job a lot easier as an audio post-production professional.
And then after you eliminate the wind, like what is your next target, I guess?
So it depends on, if the wind is all that's wrong, then I'm done. Then I move on. But if there's a click in there, then I'm going to go to my D-click and see, okay, what kind of click is this? Is this a high frequency click or is it a low frequency click? And then go and see what I can take it out from there. How sensitive do I need to make the filter to get rid of this click? But it really depends on what it is. Sometimes it just needs to take out background noise from audio. Sometimes there's a click. Sometimes there's something more. It really depends on the project, because as you are obviously aware, each audio file, each video file can be from many different takes. So you never know what you're going to find within each one. So each project is different in that way.
Do you look for those clicks visually, or do you listen for them?
I got to listen for them. Sometimes you can see them if they're isolated from everything else that you're hearing, but that's a bit of a rare occurrence. Usually you got to listen in very close. I don't use these headphones for mixing, by the way. I have other ones downstairs. The, what is it? The AKG K4, K240, I believe.
Yeah, I've seen those. Those look really comfy.
Yeah, the semi-opens. Yeah, they're very nice. They're very good. They're also pretty inexpensive mixing headphones that are just very high quality. I think they're like $60.
What?
The only thing, yeah, they're very inexpensive and very good quality. But the only thing you should know is that they're semi-open, which means that you can hear the noise coming from the headphones a little more than you can with closed back headphones. So that's the only thing for me. But since I work by myself most of the time, it's not a big deal. No one's going to care about overhearing my audio.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, okay. So they can hear it like coming out?
Just a bit. Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's why I didn't wear them to this interview. I didn't want them to leak out of my headphones into the mic.
Very attuned to the different audio things that can happen. I love that. I turn off my refrigerator and that brings up a question.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
So what are some things, because everybody always says fix it in post, right? As an audio professional, you've done the recording side and you've done the post-production side. What are some things that people need to know that they get right in the beginning that maybe you can't actually fix in post?
Great question. I love this question so much. And the first thing is definitely cars. Please stop for cars. I hate having to remove car horns and car beepings and sirens because this is really difficult compared to wind. So it's always better to have a clean sample without any cars in the background than it is to have a sample that has a bunch of beep, 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 wow, in the background. So please watch out for those car horns and those sirens and all those things. Just get rid of them, please, if you can.
Don't record by the firehouse.
Yeah, don't record by the firehouse. And if you can stop for a car, if your sound guy says hold for car, please listen to him and hold for the car. He means it. I'm sorry, I said sound guy automatically. And let me just talk about the subject real quick because sometimes I lapse and say sound guy because it's such a ubiquitous term, even though I myself am not a sound guy. We'll just try. I do my best to shift to sound professional when I can. I also use that term on my website a little bit. So I always prefer sound professional or post-production or production sound professional or boom operator or something like that. Something more gender neutral when you can. But sometimes you lapse into sound guy just because you forget, even though you're trying really hard.
Yeah.
It's just how it is sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times people, they'll say, oh, I got a guy for that. And either they are thinking that it should be a guy or they're just not really thinking about it. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but.
Yeah, you never truly know. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Does it take like a lot of muscle to hold up that boom arm?
No. You just got to make sure you don't lock your arms. If you lock your arms, your arms are going to be killing you by the end. So you just got to keep your arms relaxed as you hold the boom and then you'll be fine. Just don't lock your arms and you'll be fine. The boom is not heavy. It just means that you got to keep it steady and then you'll be fine. Like there's nothing to it that requires you to be a super giant to weld it.
So nobody should judge their short, I don't know, skinny, like, person. I'm not short. I'm not talking about me.
Yeah, no, exactly. No one should because it's not something that requires all the strength in the world to do. Now, carrying around the sound bag does require a bit of strength because the sound bag is going to have my audio interface in it. It's going to have maybe my mics in it. I might be using it to hold my pole when we're not rolling. I might be using it to hold extra equipment. Different things. So that requires a little bit of muscle, but I can do it and I'm not exactly the most jacked person alive. So you just have a little bit of strength and you should be okay on this job.
So what are some of your favorite elements about working with sound? What is your favorite role to play, I guess?
So that's a great question. It really depends on the project because I get a lot of different things I do. So when I was doing What's in the Woods, the horror movie, I had a really fun time mixing it because there were so many great horror moments in that film. There's so many fun horror stingers to worry about and horror music cues are like, rah! It was just a lot of fun to do. And there were other parts there's one part of the film where the people were talking outside and then the people were talking inside. We were hearing it from outside, so the sound had to be muffled, and it was fun to be creative with that and say, okay, let's make the audio softer here, louder here, softer here, louder here, and for each part that we need to be adjusted. I had a lot of fun doing that. On the other hand, audio editing can also be pretty fun in itself because it's like a puzzle in that sometimes you got to look at your audio and say, okay, what's the best way to fix this audio without compromising any of the quality? Because that's the key question you got to ask yourself for every single bit of audio editing you do. So that can be a fun little puzzle in and of itself. Really, I've worked on a lot of different projects at this point, and honestly, I've had fun with pretty much all of them. And all of them have been for a variety of different duties.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the terms that you use on your website that I hadn't heard anywhere else before is sonic identity. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. So that's a phrase that you often hear in the audio branding space. Do you know what audio branding is?
I can assume it's like a brand, what your brand's sound should be. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. So audio branding is basically the sonic, well, I'm not going to use sonic identity in the definition, but branding is basically how you identify your brand on an audio level. Like when you say da 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 da, we think of McDonald's, right?
Uh-huh.
And what do you think of when you think of Netflix? You think of the noise that you hear before every Netflix video now. And if you go back to older Netflix originals that did not have Netflix's audio branding, it's a little jarring because you're expecting the noise, but you don't hear the noise. So go back, listeners, go back to old Netflix originals that don't have their sonic branding, and you'll be surprised how jarring it is.
Huh.
Because to hear about the audio, because you're so used to that sonic branding of Netflix. But sonic identity is a part of that, because defining a brand on that level means that you're defining what the brand sounds like to a whole audience of people, and you're crafting a new identity. Thus, you're crafting a sonic identity. And that's what I want to do for people in the film world, is to make their projects have a unique sound to them that you can't hear anywhere else, and to make sure the sound is as good as it can possibly be so that they can hear a unique project every time they listen to the film.
That's so interesting. So like for somebody who's crafting a brand out of letters, out of words, really, we have like a thesaurus or thesaurus, however you say it, that you can go and say, okay, my brand is movies. You know, what are some other words that I can use for movies to maybe stick out? Like, is there something like that for sound that people can kind of help discover new options for what their sonic identity might be?
That's a good question. It really, I would say that using words that help define what you want your film or your whatever to sound like is a good way to do it, because a lot of people don't understand audio and music terms, and we sound people get it. We're fine with that. Just say what you want it to sound like. If you want to tell us that you want it to have an ethereal quality, we'll know how to translate that into, okay, I think I should use a pad in the score, for example. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
So say what you want it to sound like, and we can translate that into how that's going to work on an audio and music level. As long as you come in with an idea of those adjectives from your thesaurus of what you want this to sound like, we can be there to make sure that translates well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody was going to purchase something like this, say if a brand hadn't really thought about, you know, what is my sonic identity yet? Like, is it like shopping for a logo?
I guess you could say that, because there are plenty of audio branding companies out there that do work similarly to what logo companies do, in that they create this identity for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty in New York City alone. But yes, it is very similar for shopping for a logo in that way.
Okay, gotcha. We have your clip.
Oh, yeah.
Should we do a clip? Okay.
I forgot.
Okay, so we're gonna head over and take a look at the clip that you sent in.
Yeah, and the clip's available on my website, elianazebro.com as well, if you want to hear the whole video.
Awesome. Let's see.
Let me.
Interested in mutual funds? Let's cut the small talk. You've got some Benjamins you're looking to invest, but you don't have the time or expertise to manage it yourself. Hear that? It's AIG Funds stepping up to the plate. Mutual funds pool capital from many investors into one professionally managed fund. Strength in numbers. You get the idea. In return, there's potential upside. Investment diversity to help protect your assets from market downturns. Increase liquidity so you can withdraw your money when you need it most. And access to a range of financial markets and asset classes that can help you meet your investment goals. AIG Funds offer numerous options and investments, from equities to fixed income to alternatives.
That really told me. But like, I'm trying. We did it now, I'm like, yes. No one that I thought was gonna turn into something. Like, he was like, it was like this guys are joking. Like, I was like, I'm sure that guys. Hey guys.
Sometimes our darkest thoughts are our most powerful fuel. You made it, Hannah. Got what you wanted. Jump.
Fly. Set us free, Hannah.
I love that snapping sound.
Yeah, fun fact about that snapping sound. I actually took the same snap sample from earlier in the film because I wanted it to be the same snap throughout the entire film. You hear that snap multiple times. So instead of using a different snap take for each one, I used the same snap take for every snap in the film to make sure it was more consistent.
Wow, nice.
That's a part of the sonic identity thing I was talking about, because if you make a snap different every time, it's not going to stick in the viewer's mind as much as if you just use the same snap for every single time that appears in the film, because that's a big part of the film. Spoiler.
So like for science fiction stuff, when they have the specialty sounds for like guns, would you use the same gun sound with every shot, or?
It depends. It really depends on the project. If it's the same gun, it's the same type of gun, then I might use the same one, or I might vary it so that maybe we use like 3 or 4 different types of gun samples so that we can hear a variety of sounds. Instead of hearing ba 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 ba, we can hear a variety of different gun sounds.
Yeah. Would you say, like, percentage wise, like how much of the sound effects do you record, or how much of them do you like search and find from a database, let's say?
That's a good question. I guess I would say 50-50. I do have my own recording equipment for recording on my own, but I do know of sites where I can get public domain assets. So I think for that AIG clip we showed, for example, I think I found a good amount of those clips on a site that was all public. I found all public domain type clips and then alter them from there. So of course the sound designer isn't going to just use the sounds, and just do nothing with them. Sorry, there's a dog barking outside. Can you hear that?
No,
Okay,
I can't hear him.
It stopped. Great. Okay. So a sound designer is going to use different. I'm sorry.
I can hear him. Yeah.
You can't hear that? Okay. So a sound designer is going to use the sound, but they're going to make alterations to it. So they're using different audio effects to make the sound a lot different than when we first got the sample. So no matter whether I record the sound myself or if I use public domain samples or whatever, I'm going to make sure the sound sounds different than what it originally sounded like. That's part of my job.
That's cool. So if somebody's thinking about, hey, maybe I want to try to learn some of these skills, where can they find just maybe some basic public domain clips that they can like play with?
So Sound Bible is a good place to look because that site has the type of license next to every single sound on the website. So it'll tell you if it's public domain or everyone can use it, personal use only, Creative Commons, whatever. So you can get sounds from there, and then from there you can alter them. Or if it says personal use only and you want to just use it to personally alter clips for some practice, well, then you don't need anything else. You can just use it. Mm-hmm. So that would be a good place to look for some clips as well. And if you want to get started on recording, I recommend the Rode Video Mic Me. This is a microphone that's for phones. It plugs into your headphone jack. I know that the Apple iPhone has a different headphone jack now, so it might not. I think you got to get an adapter for that now. I don't have an iPhone. I have a Samsung. But that's a good unexpected mic. Oh, there we go.
This is my fancy phone here. It's a personalized broken screen and everything. This camera doesn't work. I'm so cheap.
Yeah, I have a Galaxy S6 too. That's funny.
You know, Samsung, I feel like they make really good phones, and no advertisement included here. But
yeah, hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. But so you use the Rode mic on your phone.
Yeah, and that's really handy for just recording out in the field. I went around the city about a year ago, and I just recorded a bunch of great city samples. I got the city, I got some good wind, I got sirens, I got cars, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I used the wind in this one project I was doing at the time, which was a lot of fun.
Do you house that like in a database that you can source for yourself?
So I have a Pro Tools file that has my sounds I've recorded. So it has all the sounds I've recorded, so I can just refer back to that for pretty much everything. Excuse me. So I use that as my internal database, so to speak.
Yeah. That sounds like it would take a lot of memory. Like, do you have to dedicate a hard drive to that, or what does that look like?
It is a Pro Tools file with some audio clips in it. It's not too bad. I've worked on projects that have had bigger amounts of space. This is just a couple samples, not a couple samples, but it just samples just lined up in a row, basically. It's not super big in terms of hard drive memory yet. It might get there someday, though. So not going to say never say never.
Yeah. Was that first clip that we saw in your clip, was that a commercial that was on TV or?
That was a video advertisement spot. Yeah.
Okay.
I got to do that because I interned at the Nurture Digital, the creative content agency that did that project. So that's how I got that project. It was through them at the time.
Was that your composition playing underneath?
No, it was not. I did the sound design. It was a little hard to hear in that video, but you can hear the sound design. Like I made a sound like when the piggy bank breaks. I added a sound effect there. When you hit the bat with the When you hit the bat with the ball with the bat, excuse me. When you hit the ball with the bat, I made a sound effect there. My boss really loved that one, actually. Mm-hmm. Other stuff like that, just to give it a little bit extra pizzazz, because having those sounds actually, be heard, this adds an extra level to what you're saying with your message.
Yeah.
Instead of just having it there and no sound.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if there's no sound, you see it and there's no sound, it's like confusing. It like trips your brain.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it happens more often than you think, though, but it depends on the company, depends on the commercial. Sometimes you get no sound for certain sounds, things that you would think would get sounds. But trust me, if you saw an animated movie, for example, without sound effects, it would be very jarring, because all the sound effects from an animated movie are added by sound designers, because there's no sound within the computer processor that makes everything, animate.
Yeah.
That makes everything work for the animators, rather. So if you heard say Zootopia or something like that with no sound effects, you'd be very confused. I can tell you that much.
Nice. So what are some things that you're looking forward to do in the future? Maybe some goals, some future clients?
So that's so funny you asked that, because I actually had some goals this year that I already met, which was very fast. I did not expect to meet them so quickly. My first goal this year was to work on a feature film. And I already did that in February. It was a feature called Sofa King. I had a lot of fun working on that project. It was a micro-budget feature, a lot of fun stuff in that project. And then my second goal was to start working on projects with outside the independent world. And I already talked earlier about my project with Viacom that I got to work on, which was an absolute pleasure. And I can't talk about it again because confidentiality agreements, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You know how it is. But I had a great time doing that, and I'm looking forward to working with them again as well. So I've already met a lot of my goals this year. My goal is to work on a feature. I goals to work outside the independent world and branch out a bit. I met that. I want to see what else happens this year. It's been great so far. I don't have any complaints.
Nice.
It's been good.
Okay, so question about working on a feature. Because
sure.
like lists of credits that endlessly roll. For something like, let's just say, the last movie I saw in theaters was probably like Marvel Endgame, and their credits went on for like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How many sound designers are involved in individual films?
So if you look through the credits, I actually have some pictures I can show you. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah. All
right. So I have some sound credits from some films for you to see. That I took these a while ago when I was first researching. So in the credits, you're going to see something like this where it says sound, editorial, and mix services by whatever the company is, if there's a company. Then it'll say who was the supervising sound editor and designer, who was the dialogue editor, who was the Foley editor, who was the ADR mixer, who were the sound engineers, if there's additional engineers, who were the re-recording mixers. Often there's two. For example, I was looking through the credits of The Good Place recently, and they have two re-recording mixers, both of them guys, of course. And then there's a re-recording mixer assistant, and then there's a producer for post-sound, who's this person, and then the music editor in this case. So this is for When We First Met, which is a Netflix original film. Now, if we look over at Black Mirror, there's only 4 people in the sound. There's one re-recording mixer, there's one assistant re-recording mixer, there's one supervising sound editor, and there's one dialogue editor. And that's all the post-production sound we got. So it really depends on the film, but it's usually going to be a small group of people about 2/3 of the way through the credits.
Mm-hmm. And so which one of those spots do you want? And what is it like to work with so many people in one, like, for somebody who's not in sound, it seems like, well, how do you separate one sound from another? I don't know.
How do you mean one category of people?
Yeah. How do you guys work together? Like, who starts? Does the narrative person start? Does the Foley editor start? Like, who gets the ball rolling?
So I haven't worked in big groups like that before myself. But the way it works is that we need to be in post. We need to have picture lock. Because if they change things, then we're going to be in hot water. I can imagine maybe the Foley editors could start with an early cut, but probably not the other categories. And then I imagine the dialogue editor would do their work and then hand off everything to the re-recording mixer. And then from there, the re-recording mixer is going to mix everything together so that it all sounds great. Mm-hmm. So it's probably going to be like a chain of command in that way. Dialogue editor does their work first. Foley editor's doing their work. They're all doing their work. They hand off all their work to the re-recording mixer, and then the re-recording mixer mixes the film.
Okay. So they're the one that's like in charge.
I wouldn't say in charge. Like I said, I think one of those credits as supervising sound person when I was just showing. Yeah. But they are definitely the one that's having their hands on the project last. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you've done the re-recording artist a couple times, right? I think I remember that from your website.
Yes, I've been a re-recording mixer, dialogue. My main role is re-recording mixer and dialogue editor. I've also done sound design and, of course, film scoring as well, so that's separate.
Okay, yeah. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we kind of tie things up here?
There is one more thing I wanted to mention, and that is that people often say, I always want to give some advice to any aspiring sound people out there who want to get, or people who want to get in the film world in general, that a lot of people really hate the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know, because they feel it devalues their skills. But I have a new phrase for you guys. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows what you know. Because if people don't know what your skills are within this world, they're not going to hire you, period. And the best way to go is you need to get out there and start networking. A lot of the jobs I've gotten in the past 2 years I've been doing this have been people I know and then people I don't know being referred to by people I know. That's it. It's just those two. And just more recently, I've been getting jobs by cold applying, and that's after 2 years of doing this and after building up my reel. So please get out there, put yourself out there, because it's really about who knows what you know in this world.
What's been the most effective place for you to network and meet people?
So I love the NYC Women Filmmakers group. It's a great group, and I've gone to those events quite a bit. They have panels, they've had networking events, really a lot of stuff. They've been really great. I also go to New York Women in Film and Television events. So they do night outs that I've gone to. And then the final group is Media Mavens. That's a group that's more posting jobs within the media world, but they also do some little get-togethers. So go out and meet people, because like I said, the last 2 years, it's all been people I know, people I don't know being referred to by people I know. Only more recently, after 2 years of doing this, building up my reel, building up my portfolio, am I getting jobs, but it's cold applying. So you got to expect that it's going to take time for you too. So that's my advice to everybody out there who wants to enter the film world.
Thank you, Eliana, and it's been such a pleasure, meeting you and hearing about your experience and the skills that you know and what you can do. And thank you for enriching all of us with your experience.
Thank you. No, it's been my pleasure as well.